G'day guys, welcome to another weekly developer update. This is CW and joining me today I have QX. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well, thanks so much.
Pleasure to have you on board. Joe's once again at another conference, so all the best to him and his team up there in Denver, joining the Rare Bloom conference this time. So all the best. Jump in and say g'day if you're up that way for the conference. QX, tell us a little about yourself, please, mate.
Well, I'm a community dev here. I joined the ecosystem maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Just decided to start writing a few little bots to, help myself out with tokens and coins that weren't really tracked anywhere else. And then it kind of just went from there, started helping out other people. And then that happens to be my life at nighttime now, unfortunately.
Yeah, the all-consuming Ergo ecosystem, once it's got you.
Oh, you're done for. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And you have a project this time as a participant in the ErgoHack 5. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I do, yeah, sure. So what
before you start, I'll just transition in.
Yeah, great.
There we go.
What started as a really fun idea turned into a lot of lost sleep so far. And we're getting near the end here, and I'm sure everybody's feeling it that's doing this. But our project is essentially we from dealing with a lot of people in the back end that are working on paying devs, this way and that way, and people come and go and that kind of thing. It's really, really hard, we found, to keep track of that all and remember to pay and who've you paid and walking around these Google spreadsheets and all that kind of thing. So the thought was, what if there's a system that can track all that for you? You edit it and you just kind of set it and forget it. You tell it when to do it, you just fill the pot and it does it. Yeah. So that's what I'm kind of aiming to finish building here. It's called Ergo Payroll for now, just kind of a proof of concept kind of thing. Development's going fairly well. Tweaking the back end a little bit more to get the final scripts going that do the payments. But last week I worked on some front ends of actually uploading and parsing the CSV for the initial upload, as well as a front end for editing individual lines of what people want to get paid in, or how much they're going to get paid in, or even a USD conversion ratio for that kind of thing. So that was all done last week. This week was mainly worked on finding a good system to actually do the payout. And I found a Python script to do that, actually made by, I think its name is MGPy. Very helpful guy, very super, super nice. So I'm using that for payout. That works pretty well. That's all set. And then I needed another script for the front end as well to be able to create wallets as well as assign them to people so that they could use them for fill-ups. That's good as well. So right now I'm just kind of tweaking the back end and doing some testing to make sure it's going to work and actually be a good proof of concept for people to use if they like them. Yeah,
and I see you're a Perl developer. That's a blast from the past, isn't
it? Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed about that. I feel sorry for anybody who's got to look at the code on the ErgoHack team, but yeah, that's what I know for now, with a little bit of Python, and hopefully we'll go from there for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for that update. Next one we'll jump into is CYTI. So basically what they're doing is allowing miners to, or incentivizing miners to mint a token sequence at the heading of the token ID itself. So you can specify what you want. The example here that they've got is 6C, so CCC. So the token ID will start with that. Obviously, there's a bit of computation that has to go in for the miner itself to do all this. So I think it's a cool little concept, because you might even see NFT projects or something along those lines minting a token ID with the actual name at the beginning of the ID itself. The number of sort of use cases here and unique identity, and I think it's a nice little way to differentiate yourself as well from other IDs or projects themselves in the ecosystem.
Yeah, that does sound cool.
Next up, we have Ergo Audit.
So Ergo Audit is code auditing DAO. It looks like they've been doing some updates. They're looking for right now a sign-in with Ergo feature for their application, which is actually pretty neat, where they generate a message with some information about the application. Their front end would request the data for a specific user. So that's something that I've actually been trying to figure out for my app, that it would be nice to be able to authenticate that way, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it looks like they're still going on, and yeah, there's
Ergo Auth, I believe. I think the ErgoPad guys have something similar running currently. So jump into those guys and find out if that's actually something that can be utilized.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Great.
Next up, we have this one's actually been renamed Dum Dum Dum. So it's a play on Ergo Twitter. So it's kind of like a decentralized social media platform. There's not too much information here. That they're figuring out different ways to sort of tokenize bits and pieces like NFTs and things like that. So can't wait to actually see the finished product here, or the proof of concept also. So Keith and his team have jumped into that one. So yeah, looking forward to see how far they progress.
It's super neat to think that you actually own your tweet in those circumstances. Or not, exactly. We can't say tweet, can we? Or dum dum.
Yeah, whichever way the naming convention goes, I don't think they'll be sticking with dum dum dum. It's just a little bit of a play on words there, I think. But yeah, essentially, I think the registers allow up to 3,000 characters. I think I read earlier, so they can store quite a bit of data there. So we'll see how that progresses. And next up, we have the dlop art generator.
Yeah, so it's creating an art generator for the community. It looks like they have a few updates last week, a couple days ago. They're essentially building a website for generating these art pieces, so communities will be able to make them on their own. They're looking at different formats to be able to work with, SFG versus ping, and enable minting the piece in the connected wallet kind of thing. So that is pretty neat. I mean, you know, MFTs, I don't think are ever going to go away, and it's an amazing part of the ecosystem. And some people hate them, some people love them, some people, you know, either way. But I think it's an important part and an important piece of that, and the more the merrier for that, as far as that goes. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's often NFTs themselves are often the first stepping stone into an ecosystem itself. So having that little bit of barrier entry there to entice people in, I think it's a great little sort of tool that they're putting together.
Yeah, and I think you got to remember it also, right? It also can attract a completely different, larger audience than you'd think for that kind of thing. Somebody that may not even be interested in the blockchain or why it ticks, but they're interested in those goats or those space guys or whatever.
Exactly right. Next up, we have ERP38, but I think we might skip Wilford because he's provided an update in the developer update itself. Raptor Mining, they haven't given us an update yet, so I'm not too sure what these guys are working on, whether they complete the project or not. We haven't heard anything, so yeah, we'll be waiting with bated breath on that one to find out what's going on. Next up, we have the Snisp team. So the GetBlock guys are doing something pretty cool, and this is pretty amazing what they're actually doing. It's succinct, non-interactive. What is it?
They're trying to be able to calculate the miners performed work on the blockchain. It's just pretty darn cool. Succinct,
non-interactive share proofs. So obviously, if you're not too aware of how that's calculated currently, so each miner will submit a share to a Stratum server, and the server itself will sort of determine how much work a miner's put in for the mining pool itself. And this is a sort of way to do that decentralized, and it's chain agnostic. So it's a pretty cool little concept. I was considering reading the abstract, but there's a link to the paper here, the draft paper. Jump into the Discord and read through that one, because I don't think the abstract itself does it justice. You have to get right into the paper to see how beneficial I think this is to the proof of work mining community for the entire industry moving forward. I think it's pretty revolutionary, to be honest.
Yeah, those guys that get blocked, there's something else for sure. It's I try to hang around their channel as much as I can to learn as much as I can, but just the fact that what they've done with payout and smart contracts is just
definitely
up there.
Yeah, so the link's there, and good thing is Karat's always happy to answer questions, so jump in and reach out to Cheese Enthusiast. He'll more often than not jump in and provide any insight that you seek.
And a shout out for Cheese's class that he teaches, which he actually canceled tonight, which is fine. So I'm here. He's an amazing instructor, very knowledgeable. So any of you that are watching that want to dive in a little bit, the layman's course is, I think that's what he's teaching, right?
Is the Deco layman's course.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. He does a great overview, great deep understanding of it, and is able to explain it very well. And he's very good at drawing things with a mouse, which is very difficult.
Most definitely puts everyone to shame. Okay, so moving on, we have Paizo.
Yeah, so Paizo is a on-chain governance education for miners, which is, of course, very, very important. With the complexity of these kind of things, we saw this with the hash rate spiking. People are like, "Oh, let's just change it. Let's figure it out and just do it." And with this kind of education, I think it's super, super important to be able to have that out there so you can direct people right to that kind of thing and say, "Hey, check this out. Check out this tool. This is going to show you how this kind of stuff works," and come back for questions. But yeah, very, very nice.
Yeah, and it's still, I don't think people realize, or miners realize, the extent of the governance that they have on the protocol itself. The protocol has the parameters built in, which miners control. There's basically block size, transaction fees, numerous. I think there's about 13 or so parameters off the top of my head. And this is a cool little tool that can sort of simulate the changing of those parameters and how it'll play out over an epoch. So great little tool to sort of try and educate miners and the control they have over the protocol itself. We'll skip you. That was Ergo Payroll. Thank you very much for that update. And on to Ergo Names. So Ergo Names is basically a ENS or the DNS service. So what they're proposing is to have ux.erg. You could have that as your address. Cool little tool. So simplify the string of characters for your address, and you can have a simple term like that, qx.erg. Their initial sort of Ergo hack, I think it was Ergo hack 2 or 3 or something along those lines. They had the initial proposal, so they've jumped in again to try and sort of iron out all the details and get this up and running. So thank you very much for that. For the updates for this week, for the previous week, they discussed a plan on creating a static mint, updated the minting smart contract code. They started to rework the off-chain code and updated the front end and resolution STKs. They also talked to Nemo for adding support for Nautilus, the decoding of the SVG format for the images. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And I'll let you take the next one.
Sigma balls. Fantastic. It looks like they don't have any many updates here as of this last session, but they're working on an options trading solution. Maybe they got halted by the FCC, not sure, but but that would be very interesting. I don't have I don't think there's a brief description. There's a couple a couple things here, but nothing recent. But that'll be interesting to see what they come out with if they finish it up before the end of the hackathon.
Yeah, most definitely. Nice little bit of utility there that sort of hasn't been implemented on the Ergo chain itself, having those option contracts. So interesting to see how that plays out. And next up, we have the Sigma Rust just-in-time integration. So for many of people who aren't aware, we're going to implement or activate Node 5.0. I think it's about the end of November at this stage. So this is adding that just-in-time costing into the Sigma Rust interpreter side of things. So it's great to see that work going on that side. And now we have Satergo.
Satergo is a fantastic tool. Node wallet, adding a straight-up mining server module Their channel is very lively, so lively that people are jumping in and asking for help inside it. It looks like he also did some very nice. They did some very nice UI updates that they posted in there. A beautiful, beautiful look for the new UI. You can see there. They get tipped a lot. It looks like, yeah, very busy channel. I'm kind of jealous, envious of this. But yeah,
my favorite developer cat.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, the stratum side. So being able to sort of set up a stratum, mine to your stratum, just basically all-encompassing little full node there. Green buttoning everything. I think that's a cool little utility for everyone in the ecosystem.
That is, for sure.
So next we have ObolFlip. We'll skip those guys because once again they've provided an update in the developer update itself. And finally we have MineErgo. So not too much going on here. I just believe it's something along the lines of NFT sort of utility. So just waiting on that update.
Looks like they're going to reward miners with NFTs as opposed to tokens, which is a very interesting concept for sure.
Yep. Pretty cool art they put together as well. It's pretty abstract and unique.
Yes, I saw that.
Okay, so we'll jump into the developer update. We'll kick things off with Wilford, mate, if you take that one, please.
Yeah. So Wilford started unfinished EIP. We'll have it completed by the end of the hackathon for the EIP 38 partial voting, which is fantastic. EIP 38 is a really neat, really, well, you explained it earlier. I won't explain it again. They started making changes to the nodes such that testing can be done on the hard fork solution, gave a link to the GitHub. We'll change the Boolean nature of votes to be a call option such that pools and miners can still vote for or against as they can now. But pools with the capacity to measure votes internally using an SNISP or something can smooth out their AVL trees onto our collection of potential support. This solution should make it simpler for traditional Stratum pools to relay internal votes and minimize the on-chain data cost. And of course, he'd appreciate any help in tracking down any remaining files to the node that will need changing. But just a note on this, this is really a good example of the Ergo ecosystem where William's working on this. And at the same time, you notice how he mentions SNISP, which GitBlock is working on to utilize, and just how those organic meetings kind of come together and help build each other up as far as that goes. So that was a really nice thing to see there.
Yeah, if you actually jump into the Snisp channel here, yeah, definitely really engaging conversation there. So it's great to see people jumping in and having those cross compilations and discussions across different projects. It's awesome to see. Lifts everyone up. Okay, so moving on, we have Greenhat and his team. So Giusex added the systemd unit file to run the Oracle as a service. Tim L's working on the proc-macro to generate Ergotree from the Sigma state interpreter just-in-time test suite. And then Greenhat himself has fixed another 3 issues and successfully ran posting Oracle, so 1 out of 2, and tested the epoch rollover sliding with a data point republish. And now is just adding a second Oracle to test the successful epoch rollover, and just currently progress towards the release. It's tracked on the roadmap. So if you want to check any of those updates out, the pull requests are there.
Next we have
Pragmaxim.
Pragmaxim, yeah. He added some extra node endpoints for searching through mempool and confirmed transaction, which I just looked at as pretty neat. It essentially tells you true or false with whether I believe it's the box still has the input box still has contents in it. From my brief look over at the GitHub, which was pretty neat. Useful for DApp developers, of course. And a shout out to Anon BR and MrStahlfelge himself for helping with the specifications.
Yep, fantastic. And now we have Luivatra, and on the Paideia side, basically finished the foundation. So in his terms, the boring generic stuff. So expect to be putting up some walls next week. So the contract's using the generic foundation. Assuming the foundation holds, expects the house building to be relatively fast, and he can't wait to move in on that one. And then on the Ergo Tipper bot, he's added the Flux token, so the Ergo token representative of the Flux token itself. Yep, it's great to see. And on ErgoPad, so the website's now moved away from AWS and does not use the Explorer, but a custom built Donati service. The response times seem to be much better than before, and the Paideia Web 2.0 soonest.
Yeah, that move over to away from AWS was fantastic. I noticed it felt like butter immediately. It was absolutely a great move.
Most definitely. And MrStahlfelge.
His work this week, Wallet app, yay! Completed desktop port with all missing features. It is now feature complete with version 2.1.2.19, and that same version is still waiting for the security audit, which I think he tagged somebody in that for that. Started working on address book, which is a very, very cool feature would be to have. How many times I'm constantly pasting addresses and then checking the first 10 digits, the last 10 digits, and be like, okay, I hope the ones in between are correct.
Most definitely.
Other work tested BIP32, derivation fix again, now merged into AppKit dev at Satergo.com, and will go into next Walla app release. Supported ErgoHack participants with help from Mosaic and AppKit, and tested Spectrum ErgoPay support before its release. And I'll comment on that more later when they mention it down there. But also the ErgoHack helping is, amazing community again, as somebody who's participating. Everybody I've reached out to ping like at midnight or 10 p.m. or it's even 8 a.m. kind of thing. Like, hey, I found your name on the GitHub for this. I have a question about it. Can you help me? And it's just amazing. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I've always said that as well. The access to basically the core team, but then any community developer themselves, everyone's willing to help out where they can, where time permits and everything, obviously. But by all means, if you have any questions, jump into the developer channel and ping whoever, or just ask a general question, and anyone will be willing to jump in. I think it's still a really sort of cool concept that's retained here in the Ergo ecosystem.
I agree. And if you're too scared to ask a question, start off an Ergo baseless and ask a stupid question, and you'll get some responses pretty quick, and somebody might jump in there. So that's a good place to start if you're a little nervous.
Yeah, definitely. So next up, we have LowKeyNerd and BlitzTCG. So he's put a little compilation there together from them attending, or himself and some other guys attending the CNFP-Con. So Blitz, Funiculum, Armenio, Sky Harbor, even Noah jumped in. Good to see those guys getting out and doing some networking and bringing some awareness to the projects that they're building on Ergo. So by all reports, they had a lot of fun, both in the conference itself and the after parties as well. So great to see people getting out and about and spreading that word.
I think that's a cute picture of all of them together at the end there.
Yep, most definitely.
And this, what was it? At the end of this video, there's a cool concept that I forget who said it. Maybe Dan had said it, was commenting on something, but instead of play to earn, it's play and earn, which is a very different concept with how you're marketing things and how the game actually is. So it's you're playing and you're earning, as opposed to let's play to make whatever we're doing there. So that was really neat, I thought.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing about, one of the big things that I respect about the BlitzTCG guys is they're not selling anything up front. They're waiting for the gameplay to be actually live and operational before any sort of funding is seeked or anything like that. So I think there's a lot of respect there that they're not they're delivering a project first and then sort of going down that funding route after the fact.
That's tough to do for sure. Yeah.
Yep. And next up, we have Captain Nemo.
Fleet SDK, first public alpha is finally released. He's looking forward to hear your feedback. That means everybody watching, please give him your feedback. Added involuntary token burning guard, which is very handy. Added multiple change boxes support. Added explicitly token burning. Finished transaction builder. added some basic usage examples, and gave a link to the repository there. There's ergo-graphql, which is very cool. 0.40, released with bug fixes and batch query support. Thanks to Sepfer, awesome work. Fixed an issue with wrong balance calculation. And from what I read about GraphQL, for people who don't know what that is, that essentially is a beefed up REST requester, so that you can do multiple queries to multiple different API endpoints at one time. It's super fast, pulls in a lot of information with different endpoints, and it's going to be much more efficient to use that kind of thing, which is great.
Yep. Take a huge
thank
load
goodness.
off the Explorer instance themselves.
Thank goodness you have Kushti next. You go ahead and read that one.
Okay, so next up we have Alex. So as usual, he's doing a lot of work on the node and protocol itself. So he's released version 4.0.104 of the node. Then obviously with the 5.0 release, so he's got the RC3 released now currently also. He's currently also reviewing PRs for 4.0.105. He's got a pull request there, 1841, which has been merged. There's also talk around the monotonic creation height ERP implementation. If you want to check out what that is, jump on to 1865. He's also finished the 5.0 interpreter review. There's also, once again, the monotonic creation height ERP review, and then just finishing some discussions on ERP 37 also. And then just on other matters, he's discussed payout path implementation details for Dexy, and has changed the grid trading contract, or the decentralized grid trading contract. So made tracking rules for the node, and next we'll do some off-chain trading bots. Alex is always busy, and he's reviewed a couple of contracts also. So yeah, fantastic to see Alex busy as always. And next up we have ObolFlip.
ObolFlip, ErgoHack participant, of course. We just saw them. I'm not sure if everybody has access to the channel, so he's pasting it here, but you should all have it. I think somebody confirmed down below as well that everybody, even non-participants, have access to it. We're basically done with our flip, and we release the ObolFlip client, documentation, open source contracts, and deploy the contract tomorrow at 10 UTC. Everyone can participate on the public beta, and we hope it will be a fun event. That's fantastic. Finished early. Awesome. ObolFlip takes place in rounds due to block times. This is the best way to achieve the functionality. Participants can bet on heads or tails. The round will close when 100 bets are done or 24 hours passed. When the round closed, it enters a cooldown period of 30 minutes until the winning side is determined in the same way Ergo Raffle determines its winner. After that, winning participants can redeem. Everyone can be the bank too. 3% of all bets are used as a fee for the bank. To be the bank, you simply activate it in ObolFlip client config and let it run to manage the flip rounds. And of course, you must be the lucky one to submit to a node finding the block with your management transaction. And I think somewhere, was it this one that he wrote? Yeah, I think he wrote in his other channel that, remember, this is kind of beta and first run, so don't bet more than you can lose, don't send more than you can lose kind of thing. It's, so take it easy as far as it for starters.
Note for all the degens out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we have Morphic, and then on the Sigma side, he's addressed the final review comments in Sigma 5.0, released and published Sigma 5.0.0, has released and published Sigma 4.0.7 with minor fixes for RoboVM. Implemented a simple reflection-like API to replace the Java reflection with minimal code changes in Sigma, and hopefully get some better performance out of that. Miscellaneous has reviewed some PRs in AppKit and Ergo. And next up, release of AppKit 4.0.11, a security audit of the mobile wallet, like you mentioned earlier, 2.1.2219. And he's just finishing some things up on sigma.js also. Great to see all that developer tooling come together.
Yeah, for sure.
And next up we have MHS.
MHS, Rosen Bridge soft launch in progress, setting up and configuring several servers and deploying the watcher guard services. It'll take some time since they're deploying all of the required watchers and guards themselves. Bridge will be live sooner or later this month. Sooner or later. I like that. I'm going to adopt that when people ask questions. Rosen Bridge development. We're using a kiosk library, and it had some radical changes in the latest version. We should update the codes that are using in this library. I'm wondering if he's charging people to update those codes, or he's saying, yeah, we should probably update those codes. Either way, there's a P2P connection issue, which we're investigating right now, some fixes and improvements. Raffle, a few changes are done and new features added, nothing live yet. Minotaur wallet, new release with lots of changes and improvements is coming, including multi-sig wallet. A profit-sharing DApp website is almost ready, waiting for updating a few docs on the GitHub. That was pretty neat, the profit-sharing DApp, if you guys have time to check that out. Really cool. If you have a quick 10-minute read.
Definitely. Can't wait to see that utilized a lot more, to be honest.
Yeah.
And next up, we have WMC Clinton with the NetBTC update. So his continued work on the SPV verification and relaying smart contract development. Found a fix for the front-running vulnerability with the relaying SPV proof during minting, and started drafting some implementations. Fixed a small rendering issue with their UI, and started drafting a proposal for Rosen Bridge style layer 2 authentication systems for additional security during their first MVP. Thank you very much for that update. And next up, we have Ilya from Spectrum.
Ilya, Spectrum, yep, network controller implementation, work in progress, peer feature tracking, and peer manager, work in progress for Spectrum Network. Spectrum Finance, they've integrated ErgoPay into Spectrum Finance, exclamation mark. I have to read that excitedly because I'm excited. They've integrated ErgoPay into Spectrum Finance. I'm very excited about that too. I tested it out and it's smooth as butter. I can't remember what I traded for just for fun, but I did give up a little bit of my erg to test that out, and it was great.
It's one thing that's been a lot of people have been waiting for, and it, like you said, it's just it works seamlessly. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's not even a need for what's it called, a native app for that, a native D app for that, since it's works so well in the browser to hook it in. So yeah, like we said, now you can use their Dex from your mobile phone. Try it out now, and he gives a link. Finalizing Cardano Vassal testnet. Community testing is already in process, which is awesome. A lot of people waiting for that. Works underway on the infrastructure for launching the SPF token and calculating the distribution of airdrops. I'm interested to see what and when those tokens are going to drop or land, or how many. I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, most definitely. Yasha provides a nice little rundown of the distribution methods for that. So if you want to jump onto Twitter and find Yasha Black, not too sure exactly what his Twitter handle itself is. But yeah, he runs through basically a number of different scenarios and who gets allocated what from basically all the way from beta testing. I think it was in September or so of last year.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, the off-chain batches get sort of incentivized. And yeah, I think it's cool the way they've done it. It basically encompasses everyone who's been involved in the ecosystem from day one. So it's pretty cool.
First thing I did was go to my transaction history of Spectrum and see how far back I went. Unfortunately, it wasn't that far.
Yeah, I remember back in the days, just on the initial beta, it's basically just a plain white screen with a couple of little buttons there. So they've come a long way, and kudos to the amount of work that teams put in for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we have Scala Hub. So it's just working on the Dexy payout contract to handle reserve ratio and the LP box. And we'll be making an update by tomorrow. So hopefully we'll see that in the coming developer update. Nice little comment here just from Captain Nemo, just shouting out to Kushti and Scala about having a security audit on LGD's Babel fee contract. So if everything's A-OK on that front, then move forward with Babel fees, and the implementation's already done on the Nautilus side. So for people who aren't aware what Babel fees are, it basically allows to pay transaction fees in a native token, not Erg itself. So pretty cool little concept there, and this can go a long way to well, one example here on the use case is if a project does launch on, say, GetBlock, and they just do a fair distribution, so you're only mining their token itself, you don't have any Erg, you can actually transfer that or swap it out and not actually have to purchase Erg for that swap itself. So you can pay it in the native currency. I think that's pretty cool.
That is, for sure.
And next up we have Pulsars with the the sigmaexplorer.org, mate.
Yeah, sigmaexplorer.org improved stability. They improved the initial load times, switched from an AOT compilation for now, which is interesting. Added estimated difficulty to the dashboard, inspired by the Ergo difficulty and Epoch monitor and Luivatra's work. Added network info to navbar, network and height, reworked block detail page, made URLs compatible with Ergo Explorer, so any apps using links to Ergo Explorer could easily switch to Sigma Explorer. That's really handy. That's great. Next difficulty adjustment in, now updates every second instead of waiting for a new block. That probably was painful at the high hash rate back then. Added network charts for hash rate and difficulty. Search can search on block header now. Great. Added error when search returns no results. If user enters a transaction ID that is not yet found in Explorer's mempool, it will wait for it to appear in the mempool. Oh, cool.
Yep. Great little sort of additional utility there. I think Explorer's been somewhat of a weak point at some stage throughout the ecosystem development also. So we're actually seeing a number of the sort of alt Explorer instances come from the community itself. I think it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, that is the amazing thing. I mean, there's some things that it's perspective, I guess you can say it. There's so many different eyes on something when you have your head down and you're working on, let's say, Ergo Explorer and you're coding it. And then somebody sees that from the outside and looks in and says immediately what they think from their own personal view and what they use might make it a little better or different. Then they're free to go ahead and do something like this and be successful. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just a reminder also that it's a permissionless ecosystem as well. So if you have any ideas along those lines, you don't have to wait and ask permission from, say, one of the core developers or anything like that. If you see a need or a benefit or something that in your perspective can improve the ecosystem for anyone, by all means, jump in and just take the reins and go ahead.
There are lots of reins to pick up, that's for sure.
Definitely. Okay, so next up we have Liquid Phase and swamp.audio. So they've discovered a bug with their PHP DApp connector for Nautilus and their Laravel dashboard login controller persisting users logged in via the wallet. So they pushed a fix to GitHub, which should be working now. They're still refactoring the front-end logic from Antlers, so static Laravel, to Blade directives, which is vanilla Laravel. So the dev team's also working on access roles for users, playlisters, labels, and musicians, and will most likely attempt their first tests from on-platform initiation of their smart contracts either today or tomorrow. So by the time this developer update has been published, then that should have occurred. And then if anyone else has tried them yet before, by all means, let them know how they've worked out. And just a quick little update here from Fanta. So the Explorer-like indexing for the node is also complete, just waiting on review. And next up, we have Bob with Ergo Names.
Ergo Names has updated their smart contract and backend to allow for static minting address. Successfully tested minting using only backend on Pinet with new contract. And they're going to continue testing backend and re-implement APIs to connect front end to backend. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Obviously, once again, one of our Ergo Hack participants, and we have another here with Haley PDL with the CYTI, so CITI, and they've refactoring some of the of the miner to improve the performance. They fixed a bug for encoding of the hash of tokens with a media, and then the CSS in the front end has been fixed up. And they've also allowed to load the miner configuration from the environment itself. They've also minted a first 32-bit token pattern. It took 2 days with the help of another miner. So as you can see, the amount of computation that has to go into that. And there's a link there if you want to check that out. And next up, we have Keys Enthusiast.
I've got Kay here with GitBlock. Subpooling, still working on the Flux pool. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. Many new UI updates coming thanks to our dev smoke. Hackathon, as we mentioned earlier, the Snisp paper first draft is done, and he's working on a few different methods to collect some real world data for that.
Yep. And the speed of the work, the way these guys work also, it's pretty cool. I know Jesus put a lot of sort of thought into this previously, but to bring it all together in a formal paper and have that then collecting the data as well to sort of justify all the means, yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, and these guys too, same kind of thing. Cheese is working on the hackathon. He's working on running GitBlock backend and that kind of stuff, and he still has time to answer a few questions about things when pinged for this kind of stuff. So absolutely amazing community. Once again, can't say it enough. I'll say it every 10 minutes.
Good to drive that fact home. And, so next up, we have MGPy, and then on Ergo Sapiens, just working on the NFT V2 implementation. He's also helping out with Comet, so the lottery contract tests have been successful, and just analyzing any security flaws. And on the hackathon itself, so worked with the Ergo Names team to fix artist identity issue, and then Paynet updated the nodes to RC3. And I think that's everything. But cheers, mate. Thank you very much for running through the developer update with me. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Thanks. That's fun. That's I was definitely learned a lot more than just reading it by myself. That's for sure.
Yeah, I always say this as well. It's one of my favorite times of the week to run through what everyone's working on and get an overview of what's happening in the ecosystem itself, because we're getting to the stage now where it's pretty hard to stay on top of everything. And when everyone jumps in and provides their developer update, it's a good little overview of keep everything like your finger on the pulse of what's happening on the Ergo ecosystem itself.
It sure is. It sure is. And just the fact too that these people are not necessarily doing this as their full-time job is also an amazing thing. Some of the developers I've spoken to say, "Oh, I'll get back to you after I'm done taking my test at school, and then I got to come home and do some work, and then I'll start coding." And I'm thinking, my goodness, I'm just doing my job and coming and writing some simple Perl scripts, and these guys are like core devs that are going to school, that are taking tests and working, and also coding in their spare time. So they obviously must not sleep. But it's amazing that they still take the time to be involved in the community, do these dev updates, keep the community informed. I mean, these things could easily be done behind closed doors in a closed-off Discord channel. But the fact that, as you said, this is a permissionless system where anybody can write for it, and the fact that it's public in here is absolutely amazing, and one of the more attractive things that makes me want to be part of this.
Yeah, very well said, actually, because I've spoken to a number of developers also, and they look forward to providing their updates. So it's one of the highlights for their week also is being able to provide insight into the community of basically the development of the protocols themselves that they're working on. So I think that's pretty cool.
100%. Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for tuning in once again to this week's developer update. We'll catch you next week. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.